As you can imagine, being editor-in-chief of Cycling Plus magazine does have its perks, and one of those is that I get to ride some really special bikes. For this test, we're looking at the kinds of bikes I would probably buy with my own money. So they're bikes that are less than £1,000, that's around $1,500 US. They're the kind of bikes that in the UK come under the Cycle to Work scheme, so you can get a bit of a tax break on them. And the really good thing about bikes that cost less than £1,000 is they are brilliant. There are some really good bikes out there. So we've gathered together 6 of the best, especially for you. We've got the B-Twin Triband 540. That's the house brand of sports superstore Decathlon and represents really good value. The Tifosi Ck3 Giro Klaris features, as you would expect, Shimano's newly revised entry-level Klaris group set. Marin's Four Corners is one of the new breed of gravel bikes. It's a road bike that you can take almost anywhere. The Eastway Emitter 4 is a great value carbon bike from online retail giant Wiggle. Boardman's Team Carbon has long been the benchmark for value for money carbon bikes and has won more tests than you could shake a stick at. The last of the bikes in the test is the Specialized Alley Elite, which uses the brand's state-of-the-art new Smart World system. The Boardman Team Carbon has become a fixture in our sub-£1,000 bike tests, and for very good reason. It is really very good and has been for a number of years. At the heart of the bike is a Toray carbon frame, and that carbon fibre is usually found on bikes that cost a lot more. The geometry is long and low with classic race bike angles. We think it feels as agile as some bikes that cost twice as much as this. The unbranded dual pivot brakes offer quite a lot of power, but we would have preferred to see the Shimano Tiagra brakes on here because they are much more progressive. You can probably just put softer pads on these ones though and improve the feel quite a bit. On the climbs, we did think the middleweight wheels might be a bit of an issue, but we didn't really notice them. That's partly down to the fact that the frame is so light. The bike as a whole only weighs 8.84 kilos, so it does climb really nicely. The sub-£1,000 price point is obviously incredibly important for Boardman's UK retail partner Halford, so there have been a few compromises on the components. However, even considering that, the Team Carbon is a genuine performance bike that we really enjoy riding and will be coming back to again and again. Tifosi Ck3 Giro Klaris sounds very Italian. It's actually designed in the UK by long-established distributor Chicken Cycles. The Tifosi is quite a chunky looking bike. It's got a huge D-shaped down tube. That does mean you've got a very planted ride, but it is quite firm. It's also quite a racy feeling bike. It's got a short wheelbase and really agile handling. That really comes into its own when you're descending. Unfortunately, where it doesn't come into its own is when you're climbing. The bike isn't that good at going uphill. The Venman 1 wheel and tyre combination isn't particularly heavy, but the 25mm tyres do feel quite slender. They also have K-Guard puncture protection, which is great on British roads and brilliant if you're commuting to work, but they're pretty slow to pick up. The Shimano Klaris group set is at the bottom of Shimano's range. It has a reasonably decent range of gears. It's a 50-34 with an 8-speed 12 to 28 cassette. It's not in the class of an 11-speed 105, obviously. Tektron's dual pivot brakes do have a really nice action, but they do only have one-piece pads, and that meant under heavy braking we found them just a little bit too grabby. We would have preferred a better chain set, probably better brakes, but we do think the Tifosi is a good bike, particularly good for all year round training if you add some clip-on guards, and it will lend itself to commuting as well. Specialized considers the Alley as the budget version of its multi-grand tour-winning carbon tarmac range. It's taken the tarmac, tweaked the design a little bit, made it into aluminium, and it's now much more friendly for the everyday rider. Our Alley felt powerful and purposeful on the road and was probably at its best on rolling terrain. It was no mug on shorter climbs as well, but the mid-weight wheel set did seem to make it a little bit ponderous on the longer, draggy climbs. The Axis Classics aren't bad wheels per se, but we do think the bike deserves better. The Axis name is also on the cartridge brakes. We found those a little bit wooden at the levers, and on fast, twisty descents there was also a little bit of uncertainty, a slight on-off feel that we weren't that keen on. The star of this bike really is the frame though. The Smart World technology means that you can have a strong, light and incredibly neat aluminium frame. It's just a pleasure to ride. The received wisdom, of course, especially by people who only ride carbon fibre, is that an aluminium bike will be a harsh ride. That's not the case with this one. It's got a very smooth and comfortable ride, although it is actually a rigid bike. You could make a few weight-saving changes later on, but this is a frame that's going to last and last, and that makes the bike eminently upgradable when you've got a bit more cash. You may have noticed that all-road, any road, gravel, or in the case of the Marin Four Corners, Utilitor bikes are hot right now. In practice, for the Four Corners, which actually has a very welcome look harking back to Marin's late 80s, early 90s mountain bikes, that means you get a really relaxed geometry. So you've got quite a slack, laid-back head angle, a really long wheelbase that just encourages you to ride nice and gently on and off-road. The frame has mounts for 3 bottles, front and rear panniers, and mudguards. It's also got clearances for massive tyres. The Marin is no lightweight, particularly on the road. You really feel it's 13 kilos. 4 of that comes from the wheels. Climbing on road, it's ponderous. Once you get off-road though, it does make a lot more sense. You can drop the tyre pressures to add to the comfort. It's pretty grippy as well. With a heavy bike, you definitely need a good range of gears, and you get that with the Marin. It's got an 11 to 32 cassette, and the granny gear has 30 teeth. Like other bikes of this genre, the Marin isn't for everyone. It's not a race bike, let's be honest, but if you want to have fun, you don't mind getting dirty, and just want a bit of adventure, you won't find much better at this price. Sport Superstore Decathlon's B-Twin Tri-Band range of bikes is so popular here in the UK, it actually has its own owners club. It's based around Shimano's 105 group set, which is incredibly popular, incredibly smooth running. You also get a nice set of Mavic Axiom wheels. One thing we weren't so keen on was the front end comfort. You do feel a lot of vibration up through the bars. The 25mm tyres actually feel quite slim, and the bike will take bigger and softer rubber, which will help with the comfort. We're not so keen on the Hutchinson Equinox 2 tyres. They didn't really have as much grip as we would have liked, but you can easily upgrade those. Braking on budget road bikes can be disappointing. That's not the case with the B-Twin. You get cartridge pads, and that means even in the wet, braking is confident and pretty refined. The Tri-Band represents really good value and would make a great first road bike or even a really good commuter. Our favourite bike in this test is the brand new all-carbon Eastway Emitter R4. Eastway is a British brand. It's just been taken over by online retail giant Wiggle, and that means this bike offers excellent value for money. The R4 is based around a carbon frame that weighs under a kilo. You get a carbon fork. You've got 10-speed Shimano Tiagra group set with no cost-cutting emissions, Shimano wheels, a Physique Alianti saddle, and Ritchie components, so it really does offer excellent value. The Emitter is really a budget race machine. It's got sharpish angles that help with nice alert handling. It's got a very low weight. It's the lowest on test. The large bike we tested came in at 8.5 kilos. It also has quite an aggressive racy ride position, which won't be for everyone. So if you aren't particularly flexible, you might want to look elsewhere. As we've already mentioned, the handling is really nice. It feels quite frisky. It's a very responsive bike, and you find that on the climbs in particular. That's helped by Continental's tyres, which are also really grippy on twisting descents, which we absolutely loved. One thing we would have really liked to have seen on the Eastway was an 11-speed group set. That way you could have really exploited the speed this bike has in its locker. If we are going to level any criticism at the Eastway, we'd probably mention the ride. It's pretty firm. This is a race bike after all. At the back end, that doesn't really bother us because it's quite neutral. It does feel a bit harsh through the front though, but we think that could be easily remedied just by adding some better bar tape. We're massively impressed with the Eastway Emitter, and that's why we've given it the top award in our sub £1,000 bike test. So there we have it, 6 bikes that offer really excellent value. The Boardman and the Specialized should get a special mention, but our favourite was the Eastway Emitter R4. It's a debut bike, it's carbon, it's light, it handles brilliantly, it's pretty comfortable, and above all, it is excellent value for money. You can find more bike tests in each issue of Cycling Plus. It's what we do. Bye.